Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we watch an anime, we come together and talk about it on this podcast, and then turn our discussion topics over to you, the listening audience, to add to whatever comment section you found this podcast in, and enhance it, improve it, tell us why we're right, tell us why we're wrong, definitely more important, and just really join in any discussion we're having, because really we're all Bakas, and that's the whole thing, clearly. All right, so what anime are we talking about this week? We're talking about Urusei Yatsura. Not the original, though. The 2022 remake did it as kind of a throwback to the original, and now we're here to talk about these new episodes. Just the first 11 episodes for this episode, and then the next podcast episode will be the rest of the series. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host. We're going to start off with the fist to my North Star. It's Jeremy. How are you doing?
Pretty good. So I would say another anime that I enjoyed that has a similar take on humor would probably be Space Dandy. I don't know if I'm stealing that from either one of you. There's definitely similarities. It's Space. I highly recommend Space Dandy. Don't listen to Jason. It's really good. Check it out.
All right. We also have the Ranma to my one half. It's Jason. How are you?
Doing all right. I don't get that reference, but anyways.
Just don't get wet for this episode, or we're gonna have a lot more fans.
Anyways, I really dislike Sunny Boy. I think it's a contemporary pile of disconnected points that has no storytelling whatsoever.
This is how we're going to start this.
Hot take from Jason.
That feels a little personal. How does that honestly, do you relate that to this anime?
In the fact that actually no, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Because
so it was first.
Okay. Yeah, following your advice, or well, your rule set, we did not have to relate it to what we were watching in any way. Just
you don't have to
provide something and then provide a little context of how it would relate to your tastes.
If you can, even better, right? Because they're about to listen to you talk about this anime, but really it's just hey, here's where a meter on my taste is, so that when you listen to me talk, you know that's what we're doing here.
Anime I don't like.
Yeah, here's an anime I hate.
I'm gonna go with an anime that's even older school than this one, the original, Speed Racer. One of the, not even knowing it was one of the first anime I actually watched. My dad used to watch it, showed it to me, and I love that car. I love the whole cartoon. I couldn't stand Spritle and Chim Chim. Like, check the trunk before the race starts, guys. Why do we never do this? But yeah, it was one of the old animes that I was introduced to. It was my dad being like, "Hey, here's a cartoon I watched as a kid," and he didn't know it was from Japan. He still denies it when I tell him, "You watch anime too, Dad." But yeah, I love old Speed Racer, and the Speed Racer movie was great. Okay, that wasn't a way to get that in there at all.
Yeah, not at all.
Not at all. All right, we're going to talk about Urusei Yatsura now. Your guys' non-spoiler reviews. Jeremy, this is your pick, so we'll let you start us off.
I enjoyed it. It was a little bit rough at the very beginning just because I have a personal pet peeve against characters that shout a lot. And this anime comes in real strong with that in the early episodes. And it does stick around, but I think the jokes landed well enough for me, and some of the dialogue was believable enough for me that it was okay. It kind of tempered it, and it wasn't so bad. it became less frequent, even though it did still happen a lot. At least that's the lenses that I'm seeing it through when I look back now. Maybe it didn't become less frequent, and it was just so well written that I saw it as less frequent. I don't know, but I got a kick out of it. I thought the characters were entertaining. They were all horrible in their own way. Every character is a pretty horrible person for the most part, but they mostly have redeeming qualities too, and some of those redeeming qualities make them interesting enough to where I don't hate them. I actually still enjoy seeing them on screen, seeing them do things, and so yeah, it's pretty good. I'm looking forward to the rest.
All right, Jason, what did you think?
Rest. I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by rest?
Oh, well, we're only halfway through it.
I don't think that's the case. I think the episodes were only like 5 or 10 minutes long.
Oh no, my friend. We have 12 left.
And they're not. Okay, we'll have to discuss that later because it's not showing that on
Really?
High Dive. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Wait, did you just watch the first 11 clips?
No, I watched episodes.
But were they 22 to 30-minute episodes? Okay. Just
Well,
checking.
yeah.
Each episode seemed to have like 2 episodes that made it up, right? Like 2 little main stories.
So this, I'm not sure if you can see it well, but there's episode 1, and if I go all the way to the end of the list, there's episode 11.
Yep.
There is no more.
I have 23 episodes that I'm looking at.
Is there a second season listed?
No,
because it's all one season, 23 episodes. And it came out like a year ago, so there's no way that it's just not released.
We can figure out the technical
I'll have
stuff.
to look for it some later.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jason, what did you think of the anime?
I thought it was not good. I did not have time with it.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm just gasping in surprise.
I know.
Do you want to expand or?
So the problem is that like the jokes didn't land with me at all. Except for one, which I did. It caught me off guard. I thought it was pretty good, but I hate every character. I didn't find one character I was able to latch onto as far as rooting for, or thought was funny, or thought that I'd like to see where this goes. And because it's a comedy, it didn't really have too much of a storyline. It was more about the characters' relationships, and they're all awful. Every relationship is just awful. And then also in the context that these are kids still in school. I don't think they're in college, so it's just weird. Also, so I don't know. There wasn't. I tried pretty much. Well, not too hard because I couldn't stand any of these characters, but I did try to find something that I liked about it, and I had a hard time.
All right.
This was a slog, and if there's 12 more episodes, I'm not having a great time.
Got to take one for the team. Yeah.
Oh, I did already.
Take 2 for the team.
I'll give my review and then we'll touch on the next 12.
Okay.
I'm falling somewhere in the middle where I think I come up on the positive side. I struggled through the first 2 episodes. I found the subject matter was dated. I found that the jokes were kind of old, but then I started laughing in episode 3 and episode 4. And I was telling these guys, it reminds me of like watching I Love Lucy or older sitcoms from like Three Stooges, where we're not doing that kind of humor now. Humor has evolved. We've gotten more clever, but they were the pioneers. They started this. The series obviously is an OG, one of the classic animes that made anime popular, especially in America. I have seen Lum throughout modern media. Like I know who the character was, even though I had no clue about the show. And so while watching it, I'm like, I can see why this worked when it worked. And there is definitely stuff here I think is good. There's jokes that land, even though they throw 100 jokes and like 10 land. So yeah, I'm laughing, but 90 went by that didn't. And there were actually some episodes that were, I agree with Jason, slogs. Ice Queen episode, just didn't work for me at all. So I'm kind of in the middle, but I do think at the end of the day, this was a love letter back to the original series, and I can't say I don't get why this wasn't popular back then. I think this felt very 80s anime, and it was a good way to represent an 80s anime. Like if you're gonna rebuild an 80s anime, I thought it was beautiful looking, even though like they're still using that old art style, but they also made it crisp and fresh. I thought the visuals were really good. So I'm on the positive side and recommending it, especially if like you have some nostalgia for those older anime, like Ranma 1/2.
I'm dumb. I found season 2, which is 12 through 24, so I got it.
Yay!
So right now we are planning to discuss season 2. Jason obviously would be happy if we didn't. My worry is that there's not going to be much to talk about. I feel like we're going to get through most of our subject matter here, but it's Jeremy's pick and it's his decision, so we will continue to watch it.
Well, we'll see. Let's see how long this episode goes, and if this episode is shorter than usual, then we'll have a good idea of what 12 more of this would be like.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away your pick. Like hey, no guys, I gotta see that second half and I want to discuss it. I just feel like I don't like watching these first 11. One of the issues is there's not meat on this bone. The characters aren't really evolving.
It is intentionally episodic, so you're definitely not wrong there. Like you're supposed to be able to pick this up on any episode and not really care too much about what happened before, which is another Space Dandy like thing.
And just to be clear, I might throw a lot of shade here, but at the end of the day, like Jeremy, if you are enjoying this, we will watch the next season.
You will suffer for me.
We do have a rule. It has to be anonymous, and we've never ever had to use it. We've always gone on to the part 2, and I assume we are.
Yeah.
It has to be anonymous.
Yeah.
But
no, don't let me what I think.
You mean unanimous? Yeah.
No, I don't want to know who voted. Sorry. Okay. Also, I have not slept more than a couple hours. Jeremy did yard work for the past 2 days. He's exhausted. So Jason's actually in charge right now.
Jason will be our host tonight.
Blame all.
What do you think I did all day today?
There will be no bias whatsoever.
Played on your brand new cell phone.
No, I mowed and then I pressure washed and then I did electrical work for my neighbor. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you're tired too. All right, so we're all tired. It will be
it'll be a fun episode.
Making a podcast is hell.
You don't understand.
All right. Oh, where are we? We gave the non-spoiler reviews. Opening and closing. What'd you guys think of them?
The OP song is fire. I really liked it.
Jason has a positive.
Yay.
And the opening visuals are good. I mean, they actually portray what the anime is fairly well. In fact, I even like that moment where he's like trying to swipe on his phone, but all he sees is
her.
That's pretty good.
That was good.
The song's okay, and the visuals are nothing to write home about. But that opening song is really good. I actually enjoyed it just about every time. So
yeah. I also love the Invader aesthetic there. It's like he's playing the Invader game and he's throwing his heart at each one of the girls and they're all just breaking his heart. And then it comes back to that at the end and it's just the screen is filled with nothing but Lum's head. And
just
he can't
crushes
get away. And it just crushes. I love that. It's super cute. And they did such a good job animating the relationship between Ataru and Lum with just that last shot of the OP. Just a few seconds of seeing his expression and how his eyes narrows, and then she just looks to the side like, yeah, I don't really care. I know you don't mean it. deep down it's all a show. Yeah, I really like the OP. Edie, I agree with Jason. It's all right, but nothing great. Nothing.
I'm also in total agreement with these guys, but I want to call out the concert when it appears she's the one singing on stage, and then everyone dancing with the flash sticks, and only the guys of the plot that will like her are the ones dancing with the flash sticks, plus her dad, and then all the others are like, "Oh, it's love."
Yeah.
I love that little detail, and also that those flash sticks movements were good. They got me
Yeah.
every time.
Is it like how Cherries is slower than the rest? Like,
Yeah.
it's so good.
And then all the vintage shots of like all the media that Lums appeared in, and was that in the closing or the opening? But either way, it was great. That was a great moment.
Probably the closing. The opening has a lot of like the black and white scenes. He's running from her.
One of them had like even shots of like Game Boy games that she's been in, and one I swear made a what was that? It was a dating sim, but it was really a horror game.
Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah, I swear they make a Doki Doki Literature Club with her where they show Shinobu and it changes to her, and it's just a flash of a second. And I'm like, did they just make a Doki Doki?
I would not put it past them.
So
yeah, that's very fitting.
there's some good stuff in there for the OP. All right, before we go on to spoilers, officially our next anime is the rest of this anime. So we are watching episodes 12 through 23. And we will discuss the rest of that. So that is what you need to watch. If you are going to turn away from right this moment where I'm dropping the spoiler warning. So if you have not seen the 2022 version of Urusei Yatsura, it's going to be spoiled from here on out. Also, if you haven't seen the original, I assume this spoils a lot of that too. Just to be fair.
Yeah, loosely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Jeremy, you have information on the original. I didn't do any, like work or effort.
I mean, I didn't put a ton of effort into it, maybe just an hour of cursory investigation, but I was really curious about, how does this one stack up to the original? What about the intentions of the original author? And like, what was the circumstances that surrounded its inception originally? And it was pretty cool. It's worth a read. There's some great videos on YouTube that go into it, but in very, very brief summary, this is the same lady that authored Ranma 1/2 and Inuyasha and several other anime that are very well known, not to me, but they're considered major works. So it was kind of a surprise. And apparently because it came out in the same time period as like Fist of the North Star and Berserk, things like that were very heavy and melodramatic and gory and serious. This was sort of an attempt to appeal to the more college, relatable to college students, things like that. And so, she was young when she put it out, and it became a major success. Like this was a huge moment in her career because it kind of propelled her forward into success. I should say her name, Rumiko Takahashi. So definitely worth checking out the story behind it. It's pretty cool.
Now that you say that, there's a clan symbol in this that I remember looking at and thinking, God, that reminds me of something from Inuyasha.
The Mendo clan symbol?
Yes.
Yes. I had to look up what that was because I was like, is that a mole? Like what is it, a mole with like a scarf over its head? It's an octopus. We haven't gotten to the point in the story where we understand why, but it's an octopus. That's part of their family lore and symbol.
The character reminds me of a character who's a flea in Inuyasha. He's a flea demon.
Oh yeah.
He just has that kind of that bald head and those same weird eyes. So yeah, definitely can see the connections. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so spoiler warning's been dropped. The plot starts in modern Japan, and alien ships are descending upon Earth en masse, and we meet our main character as he is pledging his eternal love to his girlfriend before he turns and looks at a hot babe who's walking by and gets slapped. That's literally the character bio of this guy. Like,
yes.
Hey, what do I need to know about this guy? He'll pledge his love to anyone and then instantly look at another woman.
Mhm.
This is Ataru, main character. Although that's open to debate eventually.
Yeah.
Well, here are guys' thoughts on Ataru.
Jeremy, why don't you go first?
We don't want to start every single one with like, I hate this character. And here's the reasons why. Yeah. Okay. So Ataru is a pretty horrible character. Now, I think he's complex enough that not everything about him is irredeemable. Now there's some redeeming qualities, and you also see in a couple of the episodes that some of his behavior seems like it's more to get a rise out of the person that he's with, which is not good either, but at least it's more interesting than just a lecherous pervert, right? There's some more level of complication and complexity there that makes it, worth a few brain cells of thought, but at the same time, like there's other moments where like he'll take a punch for Lum, even if it's his own punch, you know. And yeah, I don't mind him. I don't like him, but I also don't mind him most of the time. In the first few episodes, I found his constant yelling to be such a grating, annoying noise that I was having a really hard time with that. But over time, I don't know if I just became dull to it or what, but it didn't bother me as much. He's a lot of the jokes surrounding him. He was often the butt of the joke. Like he would do all of his shenanigans and then he would get electrocuted by Lum, right? And that was the
punchline.
Thank you. Yes, the punchline. I just couldn't. I'm tired. That's what it is. That was the punchline of every one of his jokes, is that he would get in trouble. He would face consequences for his behavior. And at the same time, the other characters aren't really much better than him. But yeah, he's got a lot to learn, and I don't think, because of its episodic nature, I don't think that we're actually going to see a major change or a major arc for this character. I think he's supposed to sort of be a stand-in for an unrealistic, annoying person that can be the catalyst for situations that the author finds humorous and that I too find humorous. So I don't see him so much as like a character that I would want to see in the real world, but I do see him as a character that is funny to see in a cartoon doing silly things.
Yeah, I can't stand this character. And I think the problem is that it's not just because he's a jerk and he's self-centered and he treats everyone around him as a tool to get into his own lecherous perversion. But that he's inconsistent with what he says and what he does in a lot of situations. And the main thing that we come across is he's constantly asking girls for dates and for numbers and being, a lecherous pervert. And then he gets this attractive female, falls into his lap and is professing to be married to him. And he pushes her away at every opportunity. I don't understand that. I don't find that funny. And I don't think it's good storytelling. And that's, I guess that's the problem with me when it comes to comedy, is I have to see some sort of string that's being woven to then get a punchline, because it was so irritating every time she shocked him. It was like, this is dumb, and why hasn't she left? Like, why is she continually and I know we haven't moved on to Lum yet, but it's a huge part of why I hate Otaro and Lum. That he consistently treats her like trash, and she consistently wants his affection, and it's just the most irritating thing to watch on screen. But anyways, I don't like this character.
Do you think he finds her attractive?
Absolutely. He even says so in the first episode.
Oh, sure, but it also says in the dating episode later on, he's like, "Oh, I didn't realize she was this attractive." So, I I don't think like once he got past that, I think there's two things at play here. I think number one is when she first showed up, maybe he did see her as attractive, but I think the second thing is that was because she was new, she was unknown, and the
Right.
problem with him as a character is once the woman becomes known, he loses interest.
Right. And I hate characters like that.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. But that's where I think he didn't necessarily think of her as this attractive woman anymore. It was like this alien that I spent what was he spend 8 days, 10 days like chasing her around, being made a fool of. Yeah, and then he finally caught her, and now she won't leave him alone when he was after something else. So I know that in the original, she wasn't even a main character in the beginning. She was a side character that was considered the annoyance. The main character was supposed to be Shinobu and him, right? And that relationship. And so Lum was just this background character, but everybody loved Lum. So Lum came to the forefront and became a very important character. And so I think it kind of is trying to maybe pay homage to that or be true to it, perhaps, in the sense that Lum initially is just an annoyance to him. And I don't think he even changes that perspective until he gets about episodes, whatever the dating episode is, like 6 or 7. I think that's when it starts to change a little bit.
He's a character who's barely palatable, but I do find him palatable for two reasons. And the first is to get into what you guys have been discussing. I see him as a dog chasing cars. He can't do anything if he catches the car, and we see that in this very first scene. I profess my love to you. Immediately turns around and ruins it.
Yep.
And is not so stupid not to realize that that's going to happen. And so I have to assume, if I'm even looking at any depth in this anime, and I don't think there's a lot of depth in this anime, but if there's any depth in this anime, he's purposely sabotaging any chance at a relationship. And so when Lum shows up, yeah, let me grab her. That's gonna be great. Smoochy smoochy. As soon as he has her, as soon as he has this beautiful woman who he can have, well, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly don't think it'd be different with any character. If Shinobu was literally like, let's go get married, he goes through the whole thing of let's get married. But I think if he got to that point where he obtained that and they started to head to the path of marriage, he'd freak out and be like, no, I don't want to be married to you. I want to chase girls. He doesn't actually want girls. He wants to chase girls.
Yeah, it's the love of the game.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
And to the point where even he's self-sabotaging himself all the time. If he was just lecherous and just like, I want to use women as objects and do smoochy with them, he has that option, and he's not taking it. And that to me, like, okay, so at least it's like almost just a superficial thing. He's not actually that bad. He's terrible. No, he is terrible. The thing that makes him, the second thing is everyone else is terrible. And the biggest one, and we'll get to her in a minute, is Shinobu. That helps a lot. Shinobu's character helped a lot. Lum actually, I think, kind of pushes it the wrong way. And we'll get to that when we get to Lum. But the fact that every other character is also kind of a tool and self-centered and superficial makes that, well,
some of the lines are so good.
Right. It is. I'm not rooting for him to win, but I don't mind if he wins because he's not beating like a good person when he wins. He's still beating other jerks. Yeah. So that made him palatable. Again, not likable, but to the fact where I'm like, okay, I can follow you as a main character, but yeah, I enjoy you getting zapped and your just desserts every time because you totally deserve it.
Yeah, there's like one of the female characters. She's sitting there and she sees him and she sees another character who, on the outside is wealthy and attractive and everything. And apparently Ataru is potato face. Like apparently he came out of oblivion or something. He looks real bad. And And she's like, oh, I don't care if they're the same on the inside as long as they're different on the outside. You know, and that just cracked me up because it was like, okay, so like to your point, these characters are all superficial,
Right.
and there's no punches pulled. She's not the only female that says that either. There's
Right.
another one that says that later, something similar.
All right, like I said, the one that kind of defeats that is Lum. No, we're not ready to talk about it. She's not here yet. All right. So aliens are coming down. His mom and the government come and grab him. They take him to meet the alien boss, who's like, hey, we've decided to have a competition to see if we'll take over Earth. You were randomly selected.
Should we talk about Shinobu first, since this first scene is him and her?
Kind of want to talk about Lum first, just because she's such a more of a main character.
I will follow your lead.
Yeah,
we do need to talk about her. You're absolutely right. But I just I wanted to give Lum just because everything's built around her.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, this alien boss. Hey, you have to do this competition, and we find out he is bad luck incarnate. So it's not just random that he was chosen. It was his bad luck to be the one chosen to save Earth. They have to play tag, which means he has to grab the alien boss's daughter by the horns. Now they are the Oni aliens, which means they just look like
ogres.
They're ogres. They're ogre people. Yeah. Except for his daughter is this beautiful princess, and she has these two little horns, and she mostly only wears the bikini almost 90% of the show.
Yep. And she can fly.
And this is and this is Lum. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the point where Lum changes her thing. So they do this competition. They have these 10 days to catch her. 10 days go by. She can fly. He can't catch her. And on the 10th day, Shinobu, his girlfriend, says, "I will marry you if you win. If you save the Earth." And he's like, "Oh, I'm getting married. I'm getting married." So he's chasing around Lum, saying, "I'm getting married. I'm getting married." Finally grabs her. She electrocutes him. Has the power to shoot electricity, but he's so dumb it doesn't hurt him as much as it should, or so persistent, whatever you want to say. Manages to grab her top, so she charges back at him, and he's able to get her horns, and he wins. But she has taken all his yelling about "let's get married." It's not the only time they do this joke either. That he means her. So she says yes, and her dad says yes. So now he has a bride, an alien bride, and he's like, "No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to marry Shinobu." So let's talk about Lum. Lum, who loves this man, calls him darling, and literally watches him flirt with every girl in the world as she's literally screaming, "Stop flirting in front of me!" And then electrocuting him nearly to death.
Yeah. So I thought about this for a while to try and figure out, why is she staying with him and why is she so enamored with him? Is it enamored or is it stubborn? And I honestly think, and this is just my opinion from what I observed, I think she's a stubborn princess. I think she's very good-hearted, but I think when she sets her mind to something, she's going to do it, and she doesn't want to give up. That, of course, puts her in this sort of, I wouldn't even say it's codependent because he's not manipulating her. He wants out. But in this sort of abusive relationship where she's subjecting herself to his lack of love, right? Because that's what she's after. She's trying to find a loving relationship. And we see this in a few shots. We learn about it when we talk about her history with Ray. We also see it during the dating episode when she's seeing how other people behave when they're on a date. So she is genuinely searching for a relationship. But at the same time, she's a princess, and it seems like she's used to getting what she wants. So I think that's why she's staying with him. Now, as far as her as a character, I didn't... At first, I kind of found her just annoying, like in the background. And this isn't even like because I looked anything up. I looked everything up after I watched these 11 episodes.
Right.
So I did not have that idea in my mind, but it just the premise to me seemed so flimsy. It was very hard just
Her
to buy into the idea. Yeah. And so to have her just suddenly be like, "Yep, I'm going to stay here and I love this guy and I'm going to be a part of his life and I'm going to follow him around." And then later when they have her join the school, whereas she wasn't needing to go to any classes before, that was kind of weird because it was like, okay, Why weren't you in classes before? It kind of almost makes me wonder how old she really is, you know, because she's not human, so she could be much older. I have no idea. But as a character, I would say she's probably one of the, well, I don't know about least crazy in my opinion. I don't know. I like her. I I I think she's adorable, and I get a kick out of every time she electrocutes him.
Um, I I don't like this kind of story beat, and it makes me not like her. Um, I don't find it funny to see someone stick around to be abused over and over again. And I know Ataru is not a consenting participant in this arrangement, which make gives it a different light. But the fact that he continually spits on her and she just keeps taking it, and continues to want to be around him is just takes all the fun out of any interactions between them for me. Um, Besides that, she makes kind of dumb decisions and constantly putting herself in positions where she doesn't need to be there, and she's constantly feeling bad. I'm not sure there's too many scenes throughout this entire anime where she genuinely feels good. Um, so I didn't like the writing around this character. I think it's weird because like I look at this character and I go, man, she deserves better. Um, yeah, so I didn't like. I guess this is probably one of the few characters I don't dislike as a character, but I hate her actions and I don't like what she puts up with because I don't like the writing surrounding her. So
Yeah, when I said the writing was outdated, Lum is almost entirely the biggest sore spot of that. My issues with her are the exact same I have whenever I watch any like harem anime. Of you don't have enough self worth to realize he's not seeing your worth, so you cling to him anyway, even though there's 12 girls that are doing it at the same time. This one, there's not a harem because everyone else seems to hate him except for her. But it's still that very much, girl, you got to respect yourself, which is a more modern sensibility than I think where they were at the 80s. And in 80s, you saw Tenchi Muyo was much bigger. You know, Tenchi Muyo doesn't work as well. There's still harems, I know, but I don't think they work as well as they used to. And I know personally, I've always found stuff like Tenchi Muyo. While I like Tenchi Muyo, the series, I always thought it was funny. The harem part was I always found like, kind of wish he just liked one girl and one girl liked him. That's just how I've always felt. And yeah, watching this as a old man that I am now, like, oh, you could do so much better. And she's a good, kind-hearted person, and you want to see her have better. And like you said, it's not Ataru's not actually like stringing her along and saying, "No, I'll change, I'll change." He was doing that to another girl.
Yes.
But
he was telling telling Lum, go, get out. Go be with Mendo. Go be with Ray. Get out of here.
Yep.
So I want better for her. I think she's a very likable character, which makes it even harder because you want to see her happy. Which means and there are some story beats where they kind of hint that, hey, things are starting to happen here, and those story beats are good because of that. Like, oh, good, finally.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then they step on it.
Yeah, then they step on it, and they step on it hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After they are married, Ataru decides he's going to.
Okay.
He's.
Do you think they were ever actually formally married, or do you think that she just keeps saying it and they're not married?
Depends, because I don't think they ever show a proper marriage ceremony, but also we don't know if they signed papers with Earth government or their alien government, the Uni government, or like what Uni traditions are for marriage. So we don't get any of that context.
If Oni tradition is my dad declares us married, then in her eyes that would explain why she sees him as married. I don't think they are Earth married at all, though. I don't think there's like a wedding certificate. There was no ceremony. She has declared herself wife. And I thought another character shows up where he's like, "This is my wife," and no, it ended up being something else. Never mind. It doesn't help. But yeah, I don't think they're actually married, but I could see from her point of view that they are, depending on what the Oni traditions are. Especially since they give him mob boss vibes, right? Like, all right.
I'm trying to figure out what you mean.
Well, the Oni dad, he's like
Yeah.
a
The
mob boss.
dad.
So when he's
Yes.
like, "I grant my blessing on this union,"
Yeah.
well, the mob would consider that union sealed, right?
Mhm.
So when the Oni, from the Oni point of view, I would say they are married. From the Earth point of view, they are not.
Yeah. I'm
And the
trying to
Oni
find
kid-
something in the wiki, and I'm not seeing any. They've even got like "wife" is always in quotes.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I get the impression that they're not, maybe not even in the Oni sense. At best, maybe just engaged. I don't know.
Ataru is still trying to get to Shinobu so that they can get married, and he's trying to call her where Lum is intercepting the call either from in the house or she goes up to her spaceship, which she leaves in orbit to, to bombard them with satellites to the point where it's creating black holes in
Yeah.
middle of all their communications.
I love that.
Helicopter disappears.
Bermuda Triangle in the air. That was cute.
Just wanted to fall asleep.
And so Shinobu is like, "No, I trust you. I believe in you. I'm coming. We're going to brave the storm and meet each other." So now it's time to talk about Shinobu, his childhood friend / former girlfriend, maybe.
Yeah, I can't stand this character either.
Mm.
God, so yeah, like the first half of the season, she's got this idea that she's going to get back together with Ataro, even though he continually kicks her to the curb anytime fresh meat comes along. And there's this constant tension between her and Lum, but it doesn't seem to mean much once we meet another character. And once we do, at that point, Shinobu seems to just kind of have zero interest in Ataru, which is great. Like, I think that's what every girl should do, is just have zero interest in this character.
Leave
But
him alone.
she ends up being relegated to even more of a background character than she is in the first couple episodes. So she ends up being more of a punchline or a side character, which makes me just dislike her. So, yeah.
She didn't bother me that much. It was more of like, you've got a fairly large cast of characters and more coming in, so somebody's got to get into the back, and she's the perfect candidate for it. Since Lum is there, Lum is now the centerpiece, so that didn't bother me too much. I got a kick out of how at first you get the impression that she's just, this sweet, innocent character that's, Lum is stealing her boyfriend away, but her boyfriend's also horrible, so is she just that pathetic that she really wants him? But then when this other character shows up and you start to see, oh, she's no better than him. She's no better than anybody else in this show. And to me, I found that funny, because if you're gonna have these caricatures, then it's great when one of them kind of surprises you, and you didn't see that from the onset, that, oh, this character's ridiculous too. And you get that later. It's a nice surprise. So I don't know. I enjoyed her character. I thought that in the scenes she was in, she usually added a bit of grounding for the most part. Like, a lot of the times the other characters would be a bit more eccentric. She was not very eccentric. She would maybe have a line or two in low tones that she would say that were pretty good jokes. Like, she was the other character that made a comment about Mendo versus Ataru, and about how neither one of them are really that great, but Mendo's still got something worth getting, and so I didn't mind her at all. I would say she was probably the least annoying of all the characters. She almost never shouted once you got past the first few episodes.
So whereas I felt Lum made Ataru less palatable, Shinobu, I think, goes the other way twice as hard. He makes it much easier to deal with. One trope I hate is when they're doing a romance and then they add this third wheel childhood friend, innocent and pure, and I've loved him forever, but now I have to learn to let him go. And they add that character all the time, and I'm like, why? Why do you add a character just to stab them in the heart every time? And so when Shinobu shows up, and she very much is fitting that trope archetype. She is his childhood friend, and you're like, oh, this is going to be the girl who gets her heart broken. And then like 2 episodes later, a hot guy shows up, and he's like, oh, do you have the hots for that guy? Yeah, I do. He's hot. I have the hots for him. And I'm like, oh, she's just a superficial jerk too. Awesome. I don't feel bad about this character, and now I don't really feel bad about what Ataru is doing because she's exactly the same. She's literally like, yeah, and like you said, there's a character. She's like, who cares if he's a slob? He's hot, and great. Thank you. If we're gonna have a main character who's such a jerk and a creep, you gotta surround him by characters like this. If she was pure as the driven snow, she wouldn't work. She would spoil the anime more than it already is, Jason. So I actually think that twist of Shinobu is genius, and I'm so glad they did it. So a character I have big thumbs up for, even though I like her more than some of the other side characters that show up later. So I wish she did stand out a little bit more often.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they are rushing to each other in the storm, like I said, and Lum's ship crashes on them, causes massive devastation. And when Ataru wakes up, he's accidentally holding Lum. Instead, Shinobu sees this and is like, well, I am out. Peace out. And breaks up with him. That's it. That's the end of the first episode. In the second episode, Ataru is being harassed by Lum in his class. So he sneaks away with a disguise, and then his parents and Lum are on TV for the weekly missing persons report to find
And the
him.
missing persons report actually shows him with the mask on.
With the disguise.
They got the shot after he put his mask on. And Cherry pops on and he's like, don't hide. I know where you are. It's so good. I busted up laughing when Cherry showed up on the screen.
So when he leaves, he bumps into this priestess who he accidentally gropes, but she's also overwhelmed by his bad luck karma. To the point where she keeps swooning into his arms, and I was like, I'm not really feeling this. And then he goes, lady, you are sending some mixed signals, because she'll slap him every time he gets close, but then fall back into his arms. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Then she drags him to her this is Cherry's niece, we find out. She drags him to do an exorcism, and her exorcism spell is like tofu, tomatoes,
It's so
noodles.
good. I wrote it down like nish nash yum yum dim sum chow mein mapu tofu.
And that made me laugh again. I was like, okay, that's. I watched English dub, and I thought the English dub line delivery on some of these very random lines was very good. Your guys' thoughts on Sakura?
I thought she was fine. She's another one of the really grounded characters for the most part. Her biggest eccentricity is probably her diet. Like the fact that she can just like
someone get her in a hot dog eating contest. Stat.
Yeah, it's crazy. But outside of that, I mean, once we get past this introductory episode, and I think this is kind of an exception when it comes to her, because she's got all of these demons that are afflicting her and she doesn't know about it, which is it's ironic, so it's funny. But once that's out of the way, she's just kind of a consistent character that's there. She's got her own story. She's got her own boyfriend that she's engaged to. She's kind of doing her own thing, and she's not even really present in the episodes as like a harem or love interest so much as just a character for Ataru to salivate after every now and then. So I didn't mind her. I thought she was entertaining.
According to the wiki, she's 30.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, she was. I don't know. She was okay. I don't actually have a lot of hate for this one. But she also wasn't a particularly influential character, except for the couple episodes that she was in. She seems to just be another source for Ataru to salivate over.
Mm-hmm.
The exorcisms were that was interesting. I did like that all of the demons that she was because she said that he needed to have the demons out, but actually she was just using him to get the demons out of her.
His luck is so bad that he acts like the other polarity. Pull them out of her. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So she says, "Hey, we need to do an exorcism on you to because of your bad luck." But then come to find out, no, she was just using him in
Yeah.
order to get them out of her. So I don't have a lot to say about this one. It's just okay. Okay.
So the reason I put her on the list to talk about was almost all because of the beach episode. Because yeah, for the most part, she's just there, and I do think that her eating joke is hilarious.
Yeah.
Especially like the spaghetti, like you can eat it all and it's free, and he doesn't take a single bite, and then they have to get more after that. She's like, no, I'm actually hungry. But there's the scene with her and her boyfriend on the beach alone, and they're getting ready to kiss and make out, and then everyone else's reaction to that scene, how they're all spying on her, not just Ataru, who's like, this is hot. Every character
Yeah.
is like, I want to watch this, and I think that really put into context where these guys' mental state is with actual relationships. It's something that fascinates them, and they're playing at it. They're not actually having real intimate relationships. They are obsessed with the idea of relationships, and it's like a game that they're playing, or they're playing pretend relationships. They don't even really know what dating and falling in love and getting married means. That's just a word they're throwing around. And this is like really the only scene that did that. But I just thought it was really interesting that they showed even Lum, even Mendo, even Shinobu all spying and thinking like, this is fascinating that they're watching a real couple have a real intimate, honest moment, and they're just obsessed with it. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of character moments, so I had to dig for what I could find. So that's why Sakura ends up on the list, especially since we have a lot of characters who are going to show up, and it's just like they show up and they did the same thing as the character before them did, and they just don't matter. So
I think that's probably one of the other issues I had with the writing. Also, is like it was a lot of the same jokes over and over, just in different situations. It's just like we did this.
But it's
Oh,
still
she
funny.
shocked him again. Oh no.
all right, so the next plot line is Ataru asks Cherry for help with Lum because she's always shocking him, and gets a ribbon from him that if he ties around her horns, it'll take her powers away, which works. But then his friends meet her and they fall in love with her. And then when she's like, well, I can't fly away, so I guess I'm sleeping in your bed. And he's like, all right, we're getting that ribbon off so you can fly away out of here. And they see him reaching for her as she's on the ground. She's like, you're not taking the ribbon you gave me. And so they all burst into the room. And eventually Cherry's letter gets brought to reveal that why he put on the ribbon. She makes him take it off so that she can deliver Thunderbolt attack.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else think of Pikachu every time she shocks him? Just
Now
Her
I
hair
will.
does turn yellow.
Yeah.
honestly, to the point where I was like, is Pikachu a reference to her with the yellow black stripes and always shocking the main character?
I never considered that. That's
I
interesting.
it went through my head because like, this feels a lot like the same joke that goes in Pokemon, but just without the dating part. You know, obviously pet and master instead. All right. Yeah. Oh, and then Sherry, sensing doom, runs away. The next episode, we have a rich boy dropping out of his fleet of airships to go to school with a parachute. This is
okay. The grandpa at the beginning cracked me up because the grandpa's like he's just clinging onto him, and you never see the grandpa from the front.
You
Like
never
you never
do.
see his face. You just see like this really grubby silhouette that's like, yeah, my son, yeah. and then at the end you get the impression that this character is like very conscientious and cultured, and cares about his grandpa and everything. And then as he turns to go, he just kind of shoves his grandpa over to the side.
ground.
I'm like, oh my god, what is this character?
This is Mendo, our rich boy and rival of Ataru. Jason, thoughts on Mendo?
I could have done without this character.
See that
he's-
that one. Go ahead.
He's a self-centered
Mm.
wannabe womanizer that can't execute on any of the things he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he's continually talking a big game, but he can't deliver on any of it. And he seems to be a nice guy at heart, but he can't hold a relationship with another man ever. At least, like, he sees every other male as something to be conquered. And yeah, I can't. Just watching him is just irritating. They're trying to do this. He's the pinnacle of good looks, and so all the girls swoon after him, but he has no idea what to do with it. He just likes the attention, and I can't.
Jeremy, your thoughts?
I thought Mendo was a great foil for Ataru. Is it Ataru?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought he was a great foil for Ataru because they're similar enough. Like, obviously, he's not quite the lecherous perv. He's not out there chasing women around. It's women are throwing themselves at him, essentially. But when it comes down to it, he really doesn't have a whole lot to his character other than, his wealth, his appearance, his fake persona that he wears all the time. And it really is fake because, the moment that a girl isn't looking at him, if he's in a situation like when he's scared of the dark or scared of being in a cave, confined spaces, he'll freak out. But if somebody is looking at him, if a girl is looking at him specifically, he retains his composure. So he's very good at keeping up his fake identity. But that's not who he is. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed a lot of the jokes. I enjoyed the competition between the two of them. I also enjoyed when Ray was introduced, which is a guy who's got better looks than he has, and how he handles that. So yeah, no, I actually didn't mind Mendo at all. I thought he was rather toned down, gentle version of Ataru, maybe. Like the humor surrounding him was usually much gentler, much softer. Whereas Ataru has very sharp points of, like, being very unlikable, almost indisputably unlikable.
Mendo probably saved this enemy for me because these first two episodes, I was like, I don't know. This is such a dated concept. I'm having trouble. I'm feeling bad for Lum. And then this guy shows up and he reveals Shinobu's true character, and he's instantly unlikable because he's, oh, is this how you commoners do desks?
Yes.
Because as the desk was thrown out the window, he happened to land on it. And he's like, is that how you do this, you commoners? And I came up from my fleet of airships, and every girl automatically likes me. And it's just instantly like, yes, you are a jerk, and I can't wait to see you suffer. Which is great because our main character is also that. So you had to have something that wasn't the same, but still more so dislikable, so that you can still root for Ataru in situations, or happy to watch them both suffer.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think Mendo almost makes the show. Every episode he's in, I think, was better. His jokes, the jokes using him, I think, work better than most of the other. I had more fun watching Ataru and Mendo compete for just whatever random thing they decided they wanted to compete for than anytime Ataru was chasing after a girl and going, smooch me, baby. His scenes with Mendo are just more interesting and funnier.
Yeah. Plus, Mendo's family and just the way he interacts with them. I mean, there are some really funny moments, and they wouldn't be there without a character like this. Like, for instance, his mother coming in an ox cart and just all the shenanigans that happen because of that. The servant that can't get a line finished. Then you also have, like, for instance,
we don't talk about episode 11. You're about to mention we're not talking about episode 11 until we get there, and even then, I'm not sure I'm going to let us talk about it. I am so mad about episode 11. We'll get there when we get there. I'm furious.
Well, in this episode, one of the things that cracked me up that was just like it was this weirdness, like this arbitrary decision of in this case communication, right? So his family is I think he said trillions of dollars, right? And he comes in with this helicopter fleet and everything. But after he parachutes down, he doesn't pull out a walkie-talkie to communicate with them.
Like a World War II radio.
Yes, he's literally like in a foghorn, like yelling through it.
He does have the loudspeaker.
Back up with them. Yeah, and they're broadcasting through the radios on their ships. Like, what happened to your money and technology? Like, what are you doing? This is so ridiculous. But there was something really funny about it, like a person actually using, a horn like that to speak up to the. I don't know. There's these weird, almost like contradictions of why do you do this weird, eccentric thing that doesn't seem to fit your status or your wealth, and it to me that's funny. Like when something is out of place and it doesn't mesh. I mean that's how humor works. The brain says that's not supposed to be like that.
Jason, are you aware that's how humor works?
It worked on me it worked on me later in this episode when he decides to throw his glove at him. So
yeah.
So yeah, well, let's get there. Mendo decides he wants to run for class president so that he can torture all the boys as punishment for their crimes, tardiness, or whatever the problem is. They will be tortured. All girls will be exempt. So every girl votes for him, and then the boys put up Ataru, whose class policy is all girls will kiss me. So all the boys vote for him, and so it's a tie. So Mendo's like, oh, then we will have a duel in the tradition of my family, which is cannons. But they're like, oh no, so you have to do it the formal way or the rite of passage or whatever it is.
Yeah, you got to use a cannon to blow an apple off of your opponent's head.
Right, but to start before you do the duel, you have to throw a glove and hit him. So he throws it, and Ataru steps inside and dodges. He's like, no, stop it. I'm trying to duel you. Starts throwing gloves, and Ataru starts doing clone jutsus to dodge, and then finally gets hit, but it's substitution jutsu Naruto joke. And Jason, is the one time you laughed, right?
It was the one time I smiled and chuckled because it was so unexpected. I thought the joke was going to end with the clones, but then, he's kind of like, oh, I got hit from the back, but then all of a sudden a log falls, and he's like, substitution jutsu!
Like, everybody knows what it is now. Yeah.
I enjoyed the fact that a remake of an 80s anime is doing a reference from a late 90s, 2000s anime. Mm-hmm. I thought that's a little snake eating its own tail. All right.
This anime a few times goes after the fourth wall and outright breaks it.
Yes. Which we all love, right, Jason?
We do.
It's highbrow humor when you break that fourth wall.
Yeah, it's just it's exciting.
They end up on the roof, and he's throwing a glove at him, and Ataru calls out to Lum, so she dives in, and she gets hit with the glove. And she's like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, now you have to battle him. So she shocks Mendo, and then everyone gets to the ceiling, the roof, and everyone just sees Mendo on the ground. They're like, I guess Ataru is the president, and he is.
But there's never any talk of the girls all having to kiss him, so that was just.
They also don't go back to the because Mendo eventually does get the presidency, and he doesn't go back to his old policies that he wanted either.
Mm-hmm.
He does try to commit Senpaku though.
Yes, it was good. It was so overboard. I
And
loved
the
it.
teacher's like, what are you doing? Stop it. You don't have to do this.
Even his servants are like,
His
just let us lop your head off.
I'll cut your head off, master. Okay, so we find out in the same episode, next segment, Mendo, he's parachuting in. He's in love with Lum. He crashes into her. They get tangled up in a parachute. And then Ataru is trying to flirt with Shinobu, and he's like, wait, do you like Mendo? And she's like, yeah, he's hot. That's the scene we talked about. They end up in the parachute, and they all get trapped in there. But then the entire class goes to the river to take a field trip, and there's caverns nearby. So Mendo's like, let's all go to the caves. And he's like, yeah, I'll get some alone time with Lum. And Ataru's like, I'll get alone time with Shinobu. So they four go into the cave, and the two boys are like, okay, we're going to split the group. And then they split the group, and they end up with the wrong girls. Ataru's with Lum. And then they come back together, and they're yelling at each other. And like, okay, let's try this again. And you knew this joke's coming, and it still made me laugh. I turn off the flashlight again, and they end up, the boys are together.
Uh-huh.
A mile away.
But the reason, okay, so again, you know the joke's coming. The boys are going to be together, but then they reveal that Mendo has crippling claustrophobia and fear of the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fear of the dark.
And so he just clings onto Ataru's leg and is screaming and begging for help. And he's like, "What are you doing, dude? You were already in the dark." He's like, "No, but I was with a girl then. You're not a girl, so I don't care if you see how cowardly I am." But then the girls show up, so he's all fine. And then they all get lost and find a rocket that Lum accidentally turns on, and it blasts in his face.
So before we jump to that, I just have to say one thing about this. And you're absolutely right. Like, it was completely predictable the moment that, they failed getting the girls apart the first time. But what I really liked was that the two guys were actually communicating. Like, they were conniving to get their own ways. I did not expect that. And the delivery was really good. It was like, oh, okay, so Mendo's just as bad as Ataru, because he's willing to drop to his level and connive with him to do this. And then on top of that, like, even though you know what the joke is going to be, sometimes the delivery is what makes the joke. And the way they delivered this, the lines, the words, the reading, just the way that the events happen and everything, like, it actually made the joke work. Because I think you could very easily have had this joke and had it just fall flat on its face because it's so predictable, which it totally didn't, because the delivery was really good.
I partially agree with you that them working together was one of the better parts of this particular scene, because we have that that weird relationship where one wants to be with the other girl, but their girl's with them, and so they're constantly trying to get with the other. I think if they had leaned into that a bit more in future episodes, that could have worked better for me. But this particular episode didn't work for me.
It's kind of like they dropped it after this. Like, it really didn't become a point of contention anymore.
Right. They weren't continuing to use each other to try and, get with the person they wanted to be. And plus with Ataru, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if he got alone time with Shinobu anyways, because as soon as he did, then, well, now he's bored and he wants to go for someone else, someone new. So
what I love is that Mendo never really gets that Ataru doesn't want Lum. He's always like, well, I'll just take Lum. And Ataru's like, yes, do it, dude. That would help so many of my problems. And he always tries to use that as like leverage, like, oh, but if you do this, then I will get Lum. And it doesn't work out for him. Episode 4 now. Sorry, Jason, but I laughed through this one almost nonstop. I was starting to chuckle in the last one, and episode 4, I was like, okay, I get this is funnier than I thought it was. And it starts with them playing couples tennis. Meanwhile, there's these alien birds carrying a pod of a sleeping princess down the hill, complaining. and then they drop the pod by accident. It starts going down the hill, and Ataru sees the pod, and it's heading right for Mendo. It goes, "Hey Mendo, look up," and it just crushes Mendo. And Ataru's just loving it, and I laughed pretty hard.
In the sub, he says, "Hey Mendo, think fast."
And it's like a vicious crush. It's not like
it is.
bonk off his head. It's like boom. That's a dead person.
He's
right
dead.
there.
Yeah.
And then he goes, I tried to warn him.
I
Right,
tried to
yes.
warn him. So these birds see Mendo and they're like, "Oh, this is perfect because we need to find a suitor for the princess who's in the pod, and he's got slick back hair." And okay, so for people who know this joke, I was like, "You think that's slick back? That's pushed back." That's gonna land with like 2 people.
I don't know it.
I know. You do need to watch. I think you should leave. It's produced by the same guys who did Tim and Eric,
Oh,
but it's called I Think You Should Leave. It's very much that random humor. Like every skit starts and you're like, "Where is this going?" And then it ends up. But it's also not safe for work content. Just so you know.
okay.
Sloppy steaks, for those who know. That was a sloppy steak reference. All right. They want him to and they're like, "Hey, kiss her, wake her up, and then you'll get to have amorous congress with her."
Like, okay, it's funny because number one, it's these crows that are supposed to be her caretakers, right? You would think that they're custodians, they're protective, they're, but they're using these terms that are just so, like, they're so clearly sexual, but at the same time, it's very eloquent speech. So I don't know,
Except
it's
for
really
one
weird.
says, "Take her to Pound Town."
Yeah, I know, and then you have that to like bend the joke. Like it works really good.
Yeah. But Ataru kisses her instead. So then they start coming up with this plan where they're going to convince her it was actually Mendo because she likes Mendo. She wakes up, she likes Mendo. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're going to get rid of Ataru." And they end up in class with them and they tie him up. There's this great scene with them arguing in like a conference room and Lum's there for some reason about what they're going to do. And the one bird turns to the other bird is like, "We don't ever get paid overtime, you know." They make that joke twice, and that just got me. These alien birds trying to get their princess laid, and their complaint is, "We don't get paid overtime."
Well, and there was even like earlier, the elder bird got knocked out, and so he's laying on the ground, knocked out, and the other 4 birds they come up to him, and they're like, "Oh, he's knocked out," and you think, "Oh, they're gonna wake him up, they're gonna help him." They start beating the crap out of him. There's like dust clouds everywhere and everything.
These birds were so random, and they were getting me every time.
They're cussing him out and stuff, and then he just wakes up, and they all just coyly look away, like, "Oh, you got knocked out, you got hurt," and he just sits up and he says, "What happened to me?" I was laughing so hard at that. And then there was also a point where, like, because Mendo didn't kiss her, and he was trying, he had ample opportunity. Everybody was trying to force him to kiss her. The birds were literally shoving his head down towards her. And he was like, I want to, but I don't know. I don't think I can. I can't. Right. And so when Ataru leaps in and kisses her instead, Mendo starts beating on the wall in the back room. He's basically throwing an emotional tantrum. And what is he saying? "Why must I be so logical?"
He did
Like,
say that.
That contradiction just cracked me up again, like screaming about how logical you are as you're having an emotional fit. It's just, there's so many good little beats that are just bam, 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 bam.
So we jump ahead to later in class, and the princess shows up, and she's like, "All right, I'm here to have the amorous congress with Mendo." and all the elders not there. The other birds are like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's go." They build a love nest in the middle of the schoolyard. They're like, "Don't worry, it's soundproof." And Lum helps build it
Yeah.
so they can have the amorous congress. all the girls are freaking out of the school, like, this is disgusting and this can't happen.
Mhm.
And she's dragging him in, and he's like, I don't know if I want to do this. She's like, we're gonna have the sex.
Yeah. We're going to make wonderful babies.
Nice up pretty babies.
Uh-huh.
They go inside, but Amaru breaks in.
Have they done the flashback to the Elder Bird yet?
No, not yet.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope.
So
That's
that's coming. Ataru breaks in Mission Impossible style with the Elder Birds,
Yes.
and they tell her the truth. And she's like, well, what if I don't follow the tradition? And he's like, oh, I don't know. So yeah, they create a computer that can look back in time, so they can
Well,
talk
it
to the.
communicates with the computer back on their home world, on their home planet, which has the ability to, like, I don't know, they're probably like AI constructs of the previous elders.
So they bring up the last elder. They're like, why do you have to follow the tradition? He's like, because I was told you have to follow the tradition. So they bring up the first elder, and apparently he had found a hot girl and married her. And so he was like, I just said that's got to be the way you do it.
Because
like,
I want to be able to remember it.
remember my adventure.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's really stupid.
Yes.
So then there's this scene. This is my favorite scene. Mendo is with her back in the love nest, and he's comforting her, like, "Hey, I'm sorry that it wasn't what you thought." And she's like, "That's okay." And then all of a sudden, Taru comes in with this giant belt, slams it on top of Mendo, and I was like, "Oh, so you got rid of him?" But they remembered that in the cave episode, if he's alone and in the dark, he will freak out. So he instantly starts crying and begging to be let out. It's called a callback, and that was a very good callback.
Oh, is that what that was?
That's what that
I must have
was.
missed it.
And then she leaves because she's like, "Yeah, Mendo's rich, but he's also a coward, and I can't. And if I can pick anyone I want, I might as well be picky." So she leaves.
Yeah. She's gonna go make a list and find the perfect man.
Someone checks all her boxes. There was a lot of euphemisms. This is the most euphemisms of any of the episodes. Like, it never got that dirty. Amorous Congress over and over again. And then, like I said, one bird, like, take her to Pound Town. I was like, what is this show? All right. Episode 5. The new school nurse has shown up, and it's Sakura. And she's asked by the boxing club to exercise some cursed boxing gloves.
This was good.
One of them accidentally ends up with Lum, and Ataru puts it on, and it possesses his hand to hug everyone nearby. And at first, he's doing it to all the girls, and like Lum, she's like, "Oh," and then another girl, and she shocks him. And Mendo's like, "Quit hugging people," and he's like, "I can't help it," and he hugs Mendo, and then he's like rubbing Mendo's back.
And Mendo doesn't leave. Mendo just stands there like, dude, stop, dude.
Like, see, I can't help it. Oh, rub, rub.
Until Ataru actually becomes grossed out, and so he whacks Mendo away, and he's like, dude, what's wrong with you? It was great.
And then Sakura shows up, and she's like, "Hey, no, it's part of a gloves, and the one glove always hugs, and the other glove, well, I'll show you." And she puts it on Ataru, and the first glove makes you hug, and then you punch whoever you hug. So he goes up to Mendo, and he's like, "Oh, let's see." Boom.
Yes. I was wondering, like, you knew as soon as he got one glove on, he's going to get the other glove on, and it's going to do something. But I was wondering, how are they going to do that? Is he going to fall into the other glove? No, she just puts the glove on him.
Puts the possessed
to
glove
show
on.
everybody how it's possessed. I was like, that surprised me. It was good.
He hugs Lum, and then to save her from being punched, starts taking the punches himself. And then Sakura puts them, which is just a boxing ring. So yeah, he's in the ring with Lum, and he's punching himself until he knocks himself out. And then the gloves are satisfied with their hugging and punching, and the curse is broken. And then he wakes up and hugs Sakura, and he's like, "Oh, the glove," and they're like, "No."
Yeah.
Oh, and then the next episode is Mendo has a pile of love letters from girls. So the boys who are jealous write a love letter to Ataru that's all about how he's better than Mendo because they know Ataru will rub it in Mendo's face.
They
And
like
Mendo's
write it 3 times. You're better than Mendo. You're better than Mendo.
I couldn't tell if they wrote it 3 times or if he just kept reading it over and over again out loud.
Yeah. Either way, it's funny.
Mendo's like, that's not real. And he's like, no, it totally is real. So they make a bet that it'll be real. So the boys are like, okay, we got him in trouble. They go and pay a girl to be his date, but she takes all the money and goes and pigs out on food and gets sick, so she can't show up. Lum finds out
$300 too.
Yeah.
300 yen. $30.
Yeah, it was $30.
Oh, it was $30. Okay.
Yeah, 3,000 yen.
And the bet was for $100.
Yeah.
Lum finds out, and at first she's upset because he's been all about meeting this hot date, but she goes and saves him, and he realizes that it's Lum, but no one else does. So they head out, and then he holds her hand, which is something she had wanted at the beginning of this episode. She had seen couples holding hands and wanted to hold his hand. And he's like, "No, get away from me." But this time he's like, "Yeah, I'll hold your hand," and then she's so pretty in the afternoon light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this because finally he did something nice of his own volition for her. That was cool.
In episode 6, he really wants to eat some sukiyaki. Super excited to go home and eat sukiyaki, but Lum has a family tradition she has to attend. She makes a portal in his closet, and they go to her planet. She forces him for war, which is really a basket-filling game.
Yeah. Okay, but his parents deserve a call out. Like, they are funny in so many scenes, and this is no exception. Like, they're sitting there at the dinner table waiting for him to come, and they've got the sukiyaki on the stove, on the burner, and it's like it's sitting there boiling, and they're like, "What are we gonna do? We know he would never miss this." And so then the scene, it flashes back to them, and the husband's like, "Well, you ate most of it."
Right. You ate all of the meat.
You ate all the meat. They ate his portion. Like, it was just, it was so good. And it continues when Cherry shows up at the house too. Like, they did a good job keeping this side of things going and funny. But his parents crack me up. Like, there's other scenes. Like, there's one with Ray later that just, the dad is super funny.
The scenes with the mom and Ray. And then there's a poster of Ray in the background randomly in the scene.
When she's handing the dad the papers to sign, and he thinks it's divorce papers, and she's like, "Why would you think that?" And you can see the feet of Ray in the background.
Ray's poster is now taped to her wall.
Yes.
Anyway, Ataru messes up the basket game for the Oni versus the other clan because he wanted to flirt with the princess, and then Lum got mad and ruined and lost the basket. So he's chosen as the one who has to be punished as the loser, which is just being shot with BB guns, paintball guns.
It looked like squirt guns, maybe. I didn't even see any pellets.
I thought they had pellets. I thought I saw.
Did they have pellets? Maybe. Okay.
But yeah, so he gets shot. But at that same time, Cherry, who has decided that Ataru must be dead, and has had also some sukiyaki. They made another pot and he ate it.
Yeah.
Managed to get video of the wall, and they see him in hell being tortured, which is just him being on that alien planet, and they're like, "Oh, he's in hell. Goodbye, son."
How fitting that in hell the demons are torturing him.
Then the next segment is he has a cold while Lum is away on Neptune, and an ice princess comes through the portal, and all his friends, they go there, and it ends up taking them to Neptune, and she just wanted them to shovel her walkways.
Yes.
And
it's so dumb.
She flirts with him, but her Yeti manservant gets real pissed off and ends up in a King Kong situation. This one did not work for me at all, except for the end where Mendo's still on Neptune shoveling alone because these girls are watching and he can't stop.
Yep. I thought it was interesting that this was the first female character that was worse even than any of the others, because she's throwing herself at him purely because he's Lum's. Like, that's the thing that's getting her off, And so like she was worse than any of the other female characters. And yet when you're first introduced to her, like you would never guess that. Like she seems like the most sweet, simple, naive character, and no, she's quite horrible.
I also noticed in the episode that will not be named, she just seems to like automatically dodge everything. She's just sitting on a pillow and like sliding around, automatically being missed by anything that might hurt her.
Yep.
All right, then the final segment of this, which is the ultimate fourth wall break. Ataru announces he is retiring, and his teacher's like, "Oh, your grades were so bad. I shouldn't have given you your report card. Now you've quit school." He's like, "I'm not quitting school." So everyone's like, "Oh, you don't want to be the main character anymore. That's great. I'll be the main character." And I mean everyone. Every character we have met shows up in the school in this like 2-minute segment. Sherry walks in, Sakura walks in, all the princesses have walked in. Lum is like, "I thought I was the main character." And then Ataru's like, "No, I don't want to be the president anymore." And that's the whole bit.
Yep.
But it was a good bit.
It was a good bit. And then at the end, we find out that Lum was always the main character.
Lum is always the main character. All right, episode 7. Oh, the pool demon. They meet the pool demon.
Yeah.
They're at Mendo's hotel in like a water park type of giant pool situation. And after getting hit by Sakura into the water, Ataru meets this little pool demon who lives at the bottom of the pool with like a little apartment in there. My favorite visual gag is when Lum's looking for him. She goes to find Ataru because she's been down there for so long. He must be drowning, and he kind of is. And the little sea monster is making tea, but he's just the tea leaves are just kind of like floating away in the water when he's trying to scoop them into the cup because they're underwater. That was a great sight gag. That was funny.
And it starts like leaching the tea.
Right.
Like you see the cloud of tea start to come.
He's already underwater. That's a good bit. But yeah, so they keep like tagging each other in. Like he tags Lum in the
yeah, Altaro doesn't want to be rude because this demon has obviously made it very clear that he's lonely and it's so nice to have a visitor.
Right.
So when Lum comes down to save him, he tags her in like it's a wrestling match and starts swimming towards the surface. And Lum, for some reason, just participates and goes, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna be the guest now.
I'm it now."
and then she's fully committed to it too until everyone else shows up, and then she tags everyone in, and then she goes to breathe. But yeah, he even goes to get snacks, and everyone freaks out. But basically, Mendo's like, "No, you can't live here, demon. Get out." He's like, "But I won't cause any problems." He's like, "No, you're a demon. Get out." So he leaves, and when they go home, they find out he moved into Ataru's bathroom. Mm-hmm. So then we get our beach segment, which is a month later. And they're going to the beach, and the mom's like, "Hey, will you take something to the beach for me to get rid of?" She has the pool demon in a little net. He's like, "Oh, what about my stuff?" And she's like, "Just send a postcard. I'll ship it to you." So in this beach episode, there's the segment with Sakura with her boyfriend, and also her eating a ton of food. We kind of already talked about everyone spies on them, but there's also this bit about this boy who's taking a pet that he's been told he can't keep, and he's got it in a cardboard box that says, "Please take care of Pochi." And we keep watching them dealing with the pool demon and like, "Okay, go into the ocean." He's like, "I'll be so sad to be alone." And then they have one more picnic with him, and they're trying to make him feel better. And then they put him in a box with a note, and this little boy, he gets rid of the box, and he's leaving, and he sees them with their box. He's like, "Oh, someone already took Pochi," but he gets so sad and he runs back. He's like, "Pochi, I'm coming for you." And he takes their box. So he takes the pool demon, and they're like, "Wait, why is this other box here?" They open it up, and it's Cherry.
It's Cherry.
Who's been mooching off this kid for who knows how long. And there was like slow-mo flashbacks of the kid running with his pet from the viewpoint of the pet, sleeping in his bed, being bathed. Like you knew the joke was coming because it would not show you the pet. You're like, oh, okay, well, I was like, it's gonna be like a poop or something. Yeah. I did not see Cherry coming, and he's just in there with like a brandy or something. Like he's
oh. I cracked up at this one again.
I can't. I have no idea why this was funny.
because it was so unexpected. Like you could not have seen Cherry coming.
No.
Right, but it's the dumbest subversion of expectations I've seen in a while.
Well, I think part of what makes it funny is that Cherry is presented as if he was a pet. Like from all, it changes your context of what
You
your
know what?
perspective was.
I think I understand why I don't find it all that funny. I hate Cherry. He's an awful character. I can't stand him. I can't stand his design. He's always just being a mooch. I just didn't like him.
Wow.
I told you I didn't like any character in this anime.
Jeremy,
no accounting for taste.
It's your favorite character. If you have a response, you feel free.
Okay. Well, I think Cherry is one of the best characters in here. And the reason is because he's got the best punchlines. Like whenever, and that's what all these characters really are for. I mean, you could argue that they're there for their humanity or they're there for, to show flawed people that are also funny. But I think it's just all one big joke. And each character should be measured by their contribution to the punchlines. And Cherry's punchlines land for me so much. Like he's always there to say the things that are either on the tip of your tongue, like this is appropriate to say, right? Like when he was missing, right? Or they thought he was missing in the earlier episodes. At the end of the entire sequence where they were showing the missing person's video and it showed him, like, you've already brought the audience to a high peak of like, yes, it's funny. They're looking for him. He's got the mask on in the picture. The things they're saying about him, they got funeral buns. They're like, they went to a funeral, but it wasn't a funeral for him. It was because they know he likes funeral buns. So they brought the funeral buns back to the house. Like it's this sequence of silly things that surprise you. And it's a really weird combination. And then at the end of all that, when you think the joke is over, Cherry pops on the screen and says, I know where you are. And I know you can see this, right? So he kind of end caps those things where they already bring you up and then it just bam, Cherry hits you with something. At other times,
too silly for me, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Cherry is like his level of silliness is very high. Like he'll say things out of the blue. Like I'm trying to remember some of them. I wrote a few down, but like this Pochi thing is a perfect example of how.
Wrote them down.
Yeah, I did. I wrote down a few of them. Yeah, don't hide. I know where you are. That was that one. When he's in front of the tapestry and he's pretending to be praying in order to like allow Ataru's ghost to rest because he
just really wanted the Sakiyaki.
Yeah, and so he's sitting there in front of the tapestry and he's just he starts out with words that at least to me they sound like, they could be part of a chant. But then they gradually devolve into like different parts of a cow. Like, and so it's just, I don't know, his humor is really good. I wish I could remember all of the scenes where he says something really funny, but he's always there to catch you when you least expect it and say something that you just don't expect from a tiny Buddha or tiny priest.
I think he works for me, especially because he's used pretty sparingly. Like he's in this episode, and then we'll go a whole episode without him, and then he'll show up in the second segment of the next episode, but always for just like a 1 second. So they like let you forget he exists. There's so many moving pieces and so many jokes flying. It's like, oh yeah, I know all these characters, and then suddenly I'm Cherry, and I'm here with a lunchbox. Where did Cherry come from? Why is Cherry even in the school? And it's so silly that he would be there. So he's just a punchline, but he's not punchlining. Like if he showed up in every episode in every segment, it wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I forgot Cherry was an option for who Poochie could be.
Yeah.
Shows how that joke works. It's like, oh, don't know. Let's hide Cherry for a while, and then Cherry's in the box, and I'm like, oh, okay, you got me. That's a good one. The pool demon moves in with the boy, becomes the new Poochie, and then sends a postcard so he can get his furniture.
Honestly, when it comes to all the different episodes, if you were to stack them side by side, this is one of the, I think it might be the only one that has like a genuine happy ending. Like things go good for one of the characters.
Yeah. In the next episode, we see the principal and a giant cat having tea. Don't worry about it; it's not important. But basically, Lum is transferring to the school officially. So she's been showing up to just hang out with Ataru and floating in the class. But now she'll officially be a student. And then it's recreation day, so they're playing games out in the yard, and another new girl is there, and of course she ends up being an old friend of Lum. And the joke with her is that, oh Lum, I've missed you. You were my friend. And remember that time when you stole the guy that I liked? And I'm gonna get my revenge, and I'm gonna kill you. And I'm actually really evil. But she keeps reverting back because she's always trying to be pretty and innocent when she's around everyone. So they'll like 5 minutes later, we'll be sitting at the stars, and oh, our friendship was so good, and remember that you stole my guy, and I hate you still.
She was the only character that swore, wasn't she?
Yeah. Did she swear? Because I don't remember.
In the dub, she did.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I don't remember any characters swearing.
Her whole plot is she's gonna kiss Ataru and drain his life force, and
because she's a vampire.
Mm-hmm. Which doesn't even seem like it's that big of a deal, because she does it to someone else and they're fine the next day.
There's two segments on this where she tries to do one there at the PE and one where she invites him over for a party and creates a clone of him, but accidentally switches the him with the clone. And the way they kept the clone was an apostrophe that just hung in the air above his head.
Yeah.
Yep. That was
why.
the whole thing. And then the next episode, we start with Cherry. He opens his food pot and the word doom appears and he's like, I sense doom.
Yep.
I was like, okay. The guy that last princess had been,
It's just literally painful for Jason.
Her name is Ron.
It's like you're at the dentist.
Lum's old boyfriend shows up, but usually he's a giant roaring cat who's just screaming Lum Lum. But he can't. When he's not angry, he transforms into a super good-looking guy, and the whole bit is that he's just there to get Lum to ask her to marry him again. But he gets mad every time he tries, and he'll turn into a human. And Shinobu's like, no, but he's like really, really hot. So why are you not marrying him? But he's
I think it's, what is it? He says, marry me. She runs to Ataru. He gets mad that she's with Ataru. He's like, and then Ataru's like, I don't want this.
And he's a giant cat.
Mm-hmm.
However, he's so hot in his human form, he instantly seduces any woman. In fact, when Ataru's mom walks in, she's like, oh my God, he's so hot. And she leaves and puts on like fancy makeup. He comes back and brings him potatoes, sweet potatoes. Yes. And he kisses her hand, but really he was tasting the potato water because he's such a glutton. But she's like, oh my. And the dad's outside in the hall crying.
Yeah, he's on the staircase and she comes out and she's like, oh, what's wrong? And he like barely even looks up and then he just whimpers like, and then he runs down the staircase. Like this sequence is just, it's good. It's funny.
So in the English dub, whenever he eats, the voice actor would say the sounds, the nom 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 munch munch munch, and it was so funny to me. But the whole sequence is that he starts chasing Ataru and Lum through the park, screaming "Marry me!" So whenever he runs by a woman, they think that means them, so they start chasing after him. And whenever he sees the food stand, he stops to eat it because he can't not eat. And so they end up all back at Ataru's house with all the food stand vendors, all the women, and all the boyfriends.
Oh, and additionally, as part of the joke, like the park was full of dozens of couples where all of the men were proposing to the women on this night.
And they instantly were like, that other guy.
And they went and they happened to run between every one of them, basically.
Yeah, and even Ataru's mom is like, well, I'm not happy with my husband and son. Maybe I should.
Maybe my life would be better.
Yeah. Then the next segment is they're all in class and they get a radio signal. And this is when Mendo pulls out an old World War II radio to talk to his air fleet. But they're saying Ray. He's like, Ray, what? And the giant tiger comes in with a jetpack. He shows up. He yells Lum. He starts eating everybody's lunches. He becomes hot again. Destroys Mendo's worldview because he's like, looks are all that matters. And then this guy's hotter. Money!
Yeah.
Money is all that matters.
And all the women leave Mendo immediately and run over to Ray. For the rest of the episode, he basically is just sitting at his desk, put out.
So Lum gets Ron to take her. Oh, she wants to give her lunch to him, so she does.
See,
And
this was another awesome moment for Cherry.
Don't ruin it. He slowly eats it like one piece at a time, and then he's back to Lum. She's like, no, it's fine.
And she's asking him every time, and she's like, oh,
that good?
that's this thing.
Like that one?
Was that good? Did you like that? Yeah.
He's like, yep. Mm-hmm. And he hardly ever talks. If he's not screaming Lum or saying nom nom, chomp chomp, he almost never talks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, well, he goes back to not caring about your feelings. She's like, it's okay because he cared about my lunch. He didn't care about anyone else's lunch like he cared about mine. And then Cherry walks in and gives him a lunch.
Nowhere.
He does the same thing. And they're like,
He's like,
Cherry,
oh,
you just
that's-
ruined it.
That's a boiled radish. That's a shrimp. Do you like that?
There's no reason for Cherry to be there or to give his lunch away.
No.
Anyway, he leaves. And they're like, why are you leaving? Because I need to go eat. He's hungry now. And then he's at Taru's house eating. Then the mom is feeding him. And then the final segment is her giving her husband a paper. And he thinks it's divorce paper. And she's like, no, you're going to the parent-teacher conference. And there's a big poster of Ray in the background. Yep. Ray's my favorite character. The joke worked for me. The fact that he destroyed Mendo's worldview. Mendo was my favorite. And this guy came in and just... Yeah. All right. Parent-teacher conference. Which ends up with Mendo's mom's ox cart getting crushed by Lum's mom's spaceship.
Yeah.
And
Actually, the best part. So, I do have something nice to say about this particular episode.
Okay.
yeah,
I think the best part of this episode is the very beginning. Ataru's mom is walking towards the school, and she's just in constant dread of her son being an absolute idiot or doing something dumb to embarrass her, or hoping no one will recognize her, and hopefully she can just deny knowing Ataru. And I thought that was decent. I was like,
Yep.
okay, I can get into this. And then they went the direction they did with the episode, and then I was not happy again.
Jeremy, I gotta ask, what is Lum's mom's language?
I have no idea. I'm guessing it's just whatever native language on their space planet.
They made her sound very Japanese.
In the sub, it was just unrecognizable at all. Totally different language. No subtitles or anything.
Is that what you got, Jason? Too Japanese? Yeah, like full accent and everything. Like, but yeah. So it ends up with Mendo and Lum translating, and Mendo is like, you've dishonored our house. You did great things for their house. Lum messes up the translation, so they get very confused. And then there is going to be a duel, but she thinks that means let's get married, and Lum's mom thinks she has to marry Mendo.
Yeah, it's
So-
Onibo
It's
Shigo, I guess, which is their planet Oni language.
And then at the very end, Ataru's like, wait, why wasn't I in this episode?
Well, one of the things that I thought was so funny about this was the idea that, Mendo's mother shows up and he comes from this super wealthy family and they're used to having this super high status. He refers to everybody over here as peasants. Her overall demeanor and her attitude is, she comes in this cart, which in itself is just silly because it takes
Because
her
of
so many
her
days to get
deep
there.
distrust for technology.
Which is ridiculous, but I love it. It's funny. And so, but the whole time she's like hiding behind the fan, right? Like aristocracy, but like the worst kind of aristocracy because she won't deign to speak to the common people. Instead, she has this butler that is supposed to speak for her. But every time he tries to relay whatever she's trying to say, somebody cuts him off. And it just builds and builds. And he's getting so pissed off that by the time he finally gets to speak an entire line, an entire sentence, he just starts dancing around and celebrating the fact that he got to say something. And then Mendo yells at him to shut up. But I thought that the comparison was really good. I enjoyed seeing how Mendo's mother, basically the queen of this very rich empire on Earth, used to this high status and everything, has this kind of an aristocratic attitude, whereas you have what seems like the queen of a planet showing up in a spaceship, and the spaceship, her level of in society is so much higher that just her presence completely crushes the ox cart, crushes everything about Mendo's family. Like, they are inconsequential in comparison,
Right.
and yet her behavior and her demeanor is so natural and normal and pleasant and sweet. I thought the contrast was really, really nice, and it fit. It was consistent with Mendo's behavior. Like, he's got the same attitude as his mom. So I enjoyed it for that reason. It was a nice comparison, and it was consistent. Oh, and she left riding on the back of the ox because the cart was destroyed, which that's really insulting. Like, come in on a cart, leave riding on an ox.
So the second half of the episode is Lum makes a doll for Ataru of herself, and then is obviously leaving, and seems very sad that she's leaving. And then we see the fall, like he's just complaining, like, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to sleep. Quit bothering me." She's trying to tell him I'm gonna leave. And then he wakes up one day and she's not there, and we see the impact it has on his life. He goes 3 days without her. He gets depressed. He stops chasing women. People, like, what's wrong with you? Mendo gets his secret police to search. He says, "Don't let the grass grow beneath your feet," and start searching. And he finds them cutting grass. He's like, "What are you doing? We are not letting it grow, sir."
It's so dumb, but it's okay. Well, but I mean, and they follow it up with a sequence of, like, they're looking in all the worst places. They're like looking on mountaintops and deserts and glaciers and oceans, and yeah.
But it ends up with Ataru crying and wishing that Lum would come back. And then we see that Lum is actually just renewing her passport at
And
home
spying on
and
him.
put a microphone in the doll because she's worried about him. He says stupid stuff all the time. She's got to keep track of him. So she hears him crying for her and then goes back, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't care that you were gone." But she knows better. Yeah. Second of, or maybe even third, if you count the punching glove episode of nice moments for them.
Mm-hmm. I'd forgotten to count the boxing glove one, but you're right, yeah.
I assume at the end of the original they are together.
I didn't look into it, but I would assume that too.
All right, the episode. We get another ox cart.
Oh no.
I'm just gonna skip it. No, I'm gonna go. It's Mendo's sister, and she likes to pull pranks. She scares.
Oh, yes.
She scares Ataru. She pretends to be Mendo's wife to make the girls jealous, and we find out she's brought him the lunch he forgot. He's like, "I didn't forget my lunch today." She's like, "No, from Monday." They're like, "It's Friday. It's all seafood. Eat it, Mendo." She is her entire life is just like torturing people with jokes.
Yes.
But Ataru, seeing a cute girl, is like, "I'll eat it," and then Mendo gets mad to the point where he's like, or she's inviting Ataru over to her house. Mendo's like, "You're not coming over," and Ataru's like, "I'm coming over after the commercial break."
Yes.
You've just described my experience torturing with jokes.
Yeah. We gotta find we're just gonna pick comedies until Jason laughs again.
Yep.
So, Troy, I have to know, why do you hate this episode so
me
much?
too.
Or have we not gotten to it yet?
It's the second half. It's completely the second half.
Okay.
Which is everyone goes to the New Year party at Mendo's place, which is just it's Mendo's family playing them like a board game, and like random things are happening to him in the room. There's spike walls, there's trapdoors, there's conveyor belts, there's a cow crossing Guys, I had to take notes on this show. Like 50 things happen in this 10-minute segment, and they're so random. I can't.
Yeah.
And all the characters are separated, so I'm like, okay, this happened to this character, and this happened to this character, and I'm like, I can't even. I couldn't keep up, and I'm like, quit. This is too random. It's too much. There's nothing concurrent here. The board game didn't make sense. They would play the board game, and then they would be at the location they needed to be at to torture the random person they were torturing. Sakura was there for a reason. There's a Powerball gag where they're trying to win money, but they drop weights on them. Were they trying to kill him? I don't know. I was fuming by the end of this episode. Like, it was just so much randomness, and it ends with a giant rocket firework into space.
Happy New Year.
Happy.
I was confused the entire episode. Just like, what? I can't imagine having to take notes.
Yeah, even just watching it, I was like, this is too random and too much. Like, it's way beyond anything we've been doing so far. As random and fourth wall breaking as we've been doing. This is like,
If like
insane. The dad torturing his son, locking him in a room just to torture him
and making fun of him as he's torturing him.
Right.
I think this might have worked if like the majority of the cast that was invited was just having a nice time somewhere, and like Ataru and like two others were going through this board game experience, and we could just follow them.
Right.
I think it
Like
might have worked a little
every
better.
time they showed up, the rest of the group was like, "What's wrong with you?" And they were like, "This place is a death trap." Like, this place is fine. And then something bad would happen to Ataru again as he left for the next room, chasing a girl.
Right.
Yeah. But the fact that it's happening to every character, and again, there's a cow crossing segment,
which she
Like
could have
someone
just
rolls
flown over.
dice. Someone rolls dice and they move and they're like, "Oh, I got to lose 4 spaces due to a cow crossing," and then like the cow crossing happens. And it's like, okay,
See, I don't know. This didn't bother me as much. I kind of wonder how much of it was because of taking notes that it bothered you. Like, if you weren't taking notes, sure, it's spontaneous. Sure, there's a lot going on, but it's not really that complicated because each thing is kind of encapsulated. There's no overarching story of like who's where on the board. None of that really matters. It's just, here's what happened to this person in this moment. Here's what happened to this person in this moment. They're like individual gags.
maybe because anytime I'm watching and I'm taking notes, I'm trying to identify, okay, what's gonna matter, and I try to go, I overdo it because then I go back through the notes and I highlight what actually did matter, but I try to make sure I don't miss anything that doesn't matter. But yes, and I'm like, does it matter where Ataru is right now? Because
no.
At one point something happened to him, and then I was like, okay, so I started writing that down, and then he got picked up and dropped into the water, and I'm like, I lost it. I lost it. I don't know what he just did. I don't know how he got in the water, why he's in the water. I got so frustrated.
Yeah. Well, I kind of liked it just because it was a sort of play on, there's a lot of movies and stories and even just historical evidence that some of it's real, where the wealthy will sometimes play games with the poor. It's in a lot of media. And so to see that this was the take that Urusei Yatsura had on it is like the wealthy here is Mendo's family, and they're very childish in the way they're doing it. Like, yes,
it's just weird they included Mendo in the game.
I know, but I thought that's what really made me laugh the most, though, is that they don't like Mendo that much. Is the impression I get. That made me laugh more. The firework was kind of a weird ending to me. That's part of the reason why I kind of see a little bit of Space Dandy. Like, I agree with Jason, in that there's a lot of things that happen that they kind of have no consequence, and the breaking of the fourth wall, just this idea that you're not looking at a story, not really. You're looking at a series of jokes loosely arranged into a format that has a minor amount of character progression, very minor. But you can come in at any point and pick up on the jokes. And if you like the jokes, it's entertaining. If you don't like the jokes, it's a waste of your time. So I kind of liked the episode for that. Also, one other thing I really liked about it was when we were first introduced to it, and Mendo was describing the location. He's like, yeah, this is basically like my bedroom. And they're still outside.
They're still, yeah.
And there's like a conveyor belt that's just going. It's just like when his sister arrived in the class in the previous episode, and they're rolling out red carpets, like these ninjas are running around rolling red carpets. Like the ostentatiousness, I think that's the right word.
Yeah, I was good up to that. It was
Good.
when the game started, and like I said, and they were separating characters, and every event was so random, and then like they'd meet up again.
Yeah.
It drove me crazy.
It would be hard to follow if I was trying to take notes. So I totally get that. One of the gags that really cracked me up, though, was when the Ice Princess thought she won money, but didn't actually win money. And she was so pissed. She's like freezing the grandpa. But what about the money? You said I won money.
Powerball usually is about money.
Yeah.
Powerball is usually about money.
She just
And
keeps
freezes
repeating it.
Arturo at the same time.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts before we go to final reviews? All right. Jeremy, you picked it. What's your final review for these first 11 episodes?
So for these first 11 episodes, I'm willing to give this a 4. I laughed a lot. And it's my kind of humor where you have like silly slapstick, pervy humor. I think it's funny. It's childish. It's juvenile. I'm not going to say it's not. But a lot of the jokes landed for me. The characters, I thought the characters were very consistent. And I really appreciate that because I want to know like what when they come to give their punchline, what is the perspective they're giving it from, and what kind of a punchline are they going to give? And I know what I can expect from Mendo. I know what I can expect from Shinobu, from Cherry, right? And they're very good about that, maintaining the same character and not losing cohesion of like who they are. I also like the art style. I really like the art style. It is a throwback to like some of the first anime that I was introduced to, and it's I thought they did a really good job making it modern but retaining that. It certainly has its low points. Like some things are a little bit boring, and a lot of the characters are just really unlikable because they're not real. They are caricatures. But yeah, overall, I would recommend the first 11 episodes. I hope that it can maintain this. So yeah, 4.
All right, Jason, how about you?
I think you may have summarized my feelings for it, Jeremy, when you said that these are not exactly characters; they're caricatures of characters.
Mm-hmm.
If there isn't at least some sort of semblance of a storyline or character arcs or something that I can kind of grasp onto to then make jokes about, I have a hard like that random silly humor doesn't appeal to me. And so because of that, I didn't enjoy myself with this. My instinct is just to give it a 1, but I don't think that's actually fair for a couple of reasons. One, the animation's gorgeous. The studio did a fantastic job. The voice acting, even in the dub, is really good. I didn't feel like it was a second-rate like studio doing the dubbing. The OP, like I said, I really liked the intro music. I don't usually watch the OP, but I watched it multiple times for this one. I hate all the characters. It's just, I think Sakura is probably the only one I don't have actual like animosity towards. But like I can find a reason to not like just about every character in this anime. So I think I'm gonna go with a 2 tentatively for the moment for these first 11 episodes. We'll see if the second season can turn me around. We'll go with that. Yeah, I know it's terrible, isn't it, Shepard?
We got a vote from the kitty.
Yeah. So, but that's where I'm sitting. I'm sitting at a 2 at the moment.
I'm a little bit curious. I want to ask one question real quick. Sorry, Troy. Because I watched it in sub, there is a sort of barrier, right? Because not hearing it in my native language, there's something that kind of protects me, you could say, shields me from the worst of the things that are being said, right? Because you don't hear them, you don't process them the same way. You're reading them on the screen and you're hearing a language that you don't understand with a lot of emotion in it.
Right.
So I kind of wonder how much that reduces the negativity of some of the things that these characters are doing as well. And I wonder if you guys like gave an episode or two a shot in sub, if you would still think the characters were as annoying. Like they're still annoying, obviously, but I wonder.
I don't find the characters annoying. That's the thing. I like their yelling, their mannerisms, the way they act towards each other. None of that gives me the impression of annoyance. All of it is awful.
Right. That's I maybe I was just couching my word to be polite to the anime. But offensive was the first term that came to my mind. But I didn't want to imply that you were, offended by it. But like the things that are said, I wonder if it's got that buffer of not being in your native language. I wonder if you would interpret it differently, if it would be as offensive.
Me and you were pretty much on the same page, right, Jeremy? And I
for the most part, I think you were a little bit like I have almost no problem whatsoever with any of the characters. Like it doesn't even bother me, but I don't know if that's me or if that's the sub or what.
The only issue I had was Lum and her not having enough self-esteem.
But and the thing is like I dislike I have reasons to dislike all of the characters in Seinfeld, but I love that show. I think the jokes land really well. I think it was great for the time as well. I think that was the other part is like none of the jokes landed for me. Okay, maybe not none.
Yeah,
the substitution jutsu was pretty good.
Yeah,
but the silliness, randomness, like random humor like that just doesn't get me. Like I've watched a little bit of Tim and Eric, and it irritates the crap out of me. So
now you make me want to go watch it.
I think it's just a flavor thing for me.
Okay,
and that's why I can't bring myself to give it a 1 because I don't think it's the worst thing on the planet. Like there's some redeeming qualities. I just think it's not my flavor of comedy.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Troy.
No. Jason missed out on Adult Swim.
Yeah.
From Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and it just got more random and random and random until we got the Tim and Eric, and it's just pure randomness. Yep. It really cultivated, for me, that type of humor, and I do like some random humor, even though sometimes Tim and Eric is too much for me, like I said.
Yeah. I mean, you've also got Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Like, it really did cultivate it. It built it up gradually.
It's a dumb show.
Meat Wad, get the money, see? All right.
Carl!
My review is I'm giving it a 3. I'm right in the middle. I laughed a lot. I did have a couple episodes that were stinkers. Like I said, mostly I find the concept dated, but it's fun to watch something classic and see why it's classic. I don't mind watching I Love Lucy, even though it's not what I consider super funny now. But it's like, oh yeah, this was great for its time, and it still holds up to this day. And the humor, I think, very much matches that in this. One thing I wanted to call out that I forgot, especially in the English dub, I don't know if they did this in the sub. They did the dub actors do the onomatopoeia for objects. When Mendo's mom hits someone with her fan, the voice actor literally says thwack. You can hear her say the word thwack, and I was like, oh, it made it funnier, especially her line delivery of like they're not taking it seriously. Like, hey, say thwack into the microphone, thwack. And then that's the line delivery of her thwacking the butler in the head when she thwacks him.
Or when they dropped the rotting seafood, they go squish.
Yeah. Squish. Yeah. The onomatopoeia voice acting is not something you usually see, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I just wanted to shout out to that.
That's cool.
All right. Our next episode is going to be a mini-sode. You guys have been asking for it. Jeremy and Jason took the time to do it. I'll also be there. What was it called?
Is it wrong to pick up chick? Yeah, Danmachi. There you go.
Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Season 4 now. We're on
Season 4, first 12 episodes. So we're gonna do 2 minisodes on this,
but not in a row. It's gonna be that minisode, then the second part of this, and then another minisode. But
yes.
So that'll be in a week, as long as I get the editing done.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
Don't make promises.
Yeah,
Difficulty.
your computer might cry a little.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's work schedule, sometimes it's computer. Last episode did great. We were under 2 hours. That's not going to happen this time. All right.
Nice.
Nope, I got to tell you where to talk to us. If you want to tell us what you think of Urusei Yatsura, past or present, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. You can reach us on our X account at Baka Podcast. You could reach us on our website, theanimebakaclub.com, and hit the contact us page, or leave a comment wherever you found our podcast. And if you want to leave us a 5-star review, that'd be great. To that person who left a one-star review, you haunt my dreams, sir. You haunt my dreams.
And we watched one of those, by the way.
Yeah, we watched.
Yeah.
It's fine. They even said they were trolling. It's fine.
It cracked me up.
Okay. We need to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Darling.
Sayonara.